everybody, and welcome back to Reaper Pro Tips with your host, me, and Disembodied Hands Queen Quindy, who just resubbed with her Prime for 38 months, but she's kind of a captive audience, isn't she? Kiki would also love to say hi. Hi, it's Kiki, guys. It's Kiki. Good girl, Keeks. Yeah, and then, then there's Justin and John, but we don't see them. We see Kiki more than we see them, so I think it's okay if I jump her name up in the order. What do you guys think? Okay, girl. No. Go settle now. Yep. You got your intro. Don't be a sore loser here. Good girl. So I think it's okay if we jump Kiki's name up, in front of Justin and John, just because, if they start showing up as much as, Kiki does, then I guess, but at least they're not, like, trying to jump up and eat my ear. I guess that's a pro. Maybe I could be convinced, but, yeah. And Crowley with the not also 38 months, not a captive audience. Thank you very much. Twitch is weird. Twitch is so weird. She's still a puppy, Pendrake. Nope. Only 7 months old. 7 months. Yes, Kiki's still a puppy. This is one of the curses of Shiloh Shepherds, actually, is that they do tend to look like dogs when they're still very much puppies. This is actually a problem when, it's why a lot of breeders don't sell to service dog homes, because people tend to forget, right? The dog looks like a dog, you forget that it's only 7 months old, you start subjecting it to more training than it can handle, and then it kind of fails out because it's still a puppy. So I've had this happen a few times, actually. No, she's not even at her full growth, though, Pendrake. She's not at her full growth. She's not filled out at all. She's still skinny mini, aren't you? As skinny mini as Kiki gets. Hi, are you going to throw your wubba at me? You going to throw your wubba at me? No, I don't want you to throw your wubba at me. I will throw your wubba for you. Go get it. But yeah, they look like a dog, but they are not. They're not. And their growth plates aren't closed yet, She's probably going to get another two inches tall at least. Hi there, baby. No, you got to go. It's Mama's working. No, let's go. Come on. She just wants to play. No, Papa. Let's go. It's time. It's time for Mama to work. Yeah. You going to go out here? Yeah, get it, Papa. Good girl. I've got to work, babies. I've got no teeth. No teeth. Yeah. I've got to work. Kiki does not respect work. She's like, work from home isn't work. That's my dog. Or my puppy. But yeah. Still on the outside too counts as a puppy. She'll look even more different when she gets to when they're fully mature around 2 years. Then you really see. Yeah, Crowley, you understand Kiki, huh? Kiki really just wants to play, does not want to work. Yes, we understand. We have all the feels on that. But yeah, she looks like she's got her adult dog face on at this point, but she's definitely not. Definitely not. It's a funny dog. I can't wait for her to calm down a little bit. She's just so full of it. Her dog friends don't like her anymore. Because she's too much. Like, there were some dog friends that she played with at the park before, but now when she meets them on walks, she's just so over the top that they don't like her anymore. It's a sad moment for the geeks. But it is what it is. I mean, she's just, she's too much for most dogs. Settle down, Kiki. Oh no, teeth incident. Oh, yeah. Keek's been doing that too. Sometimes she'll be jumping for, she'll play tug. She's learned that I'm not going to engage with her unless she brings me a toy. Because I'm not going to just play with her and have her mouth me. Or play with her ball while it's in her mouth. So she brings me the tug, but then she'll let it out of her mouth and she'll jump for your hand or your arm. And she did that to David last night. He's like, I'm done. So, yeah. Shilohs don't fully mature until 2 years. So what happens, what our breed founder always said, Shadow Raven, was that At 1 year, you can expect 2 inches and 20 to 30 pounds. I find that that's a little over, like maybe in the early days that was the way Shiloh's were. Now I'd say at a year you can expect 1 inch and 20 pounds. Because usually they widen out, they broaden out a lot between 1 and 2, and they maybe grow a little bit more. Some dogs do gain 2 inches, but it really depends on the dog. So I would say she's probably about 25 inches now, between 24 and 25 inches. I expect her to come in around 26, 27, about like Kiri. Kiri was a 27, just barely 27 inches at the shoulder. And I expect her to be around Kiri's weight. Like she's actually built a lot like Kiri, maybe even a little more solid. So yeah, that's kind of what I expect. Oh no, my number 2 brush is in the other room, but I'm working on a tiny mini today, so I do not need a number 2 brush. Swallish Sam with 11 months. Thank you. 1 more month to singing. 1 more month to the song. So yeah, Keeks is still a handful. We go through so many chews. Oh my God. Like, it's a good thing David's got a good job. Like crazy talk amounts of bully sticks, pig ears, stuffed wobble toys, or topple toys, I should say. Gosh, it's endless. Bones, like, you name it. You name it, Kiki goes through it like crazy. She's very much a chewer. So we'll see if she kind of dropped, like, that should drop off a bit as her energy level goes down around 1 year. But we'll see. We have months left to come to that state. All right, what have I got here? I've got my Winsor Newton, got my Da Vinci. I said we were going to finish up the skull, didn't I? Let's do that. I was mostly using really kind of muted out. I believe I was using like brown liner and Nod Bone. I gave her a cardboard box and she's ripping it up back there. She'll learn. It's just slow, Crowley. It's slow. And, like, at this point, I really don't want to get her a puppy sitter because they'll never take her again. Because she's so jumpy bitey. And she's a big girl. So at this point, when a dog is 60 pounds flashes teeth at you, you're like, whoa, you know? And people who don't know her, you know, are going to be like, no way, right? I'm done with this dog. So I kind of feel like I can't do it. David nixed my plan to get a dog groomer for her. Yak cheese. Yeah. Yeah, they sound like, Kiki sounds like that would be like all done in an hour. She's a power chewer. So I'm going to get a little bit of my brown liner here. Then we'll go up. And I was keeping it muted, I believe, because everything is kind of muted. So I'm going to do 1 drop of brown liner into the Nod Bone. I may bring the bone up a little bit more than I brought up the book. Get out of there. Here we go. Yeah, the book is pretty muted. Everything is pretty muted. I didn't want to go much more warm than some other colors just because I was like, I didn't want to overwhelm stuff. But yeah, I mean, Keeks, I can keep Keeks pretty, like, throughout the day. I can keep her pretty, stay really pretty solid, like, but she definitely, like, goes through a lot of chews at this age to keep her occupied while I'm trying to work on other things. She's getting better and better on walks, though. I'll tell you that, Miss Dimp. Like, she's one of those puppies who has to pick up everything on the walk, including things you'd really rather she not. But yesterday on a walk, I actually got her to leave it for like 3 different used Kleenexes. Like, I said leave it, and she came right away and like got her treats. So I think treats have become like higher value than used Kleenexes, which is, you know, excellent, because I hate digging those things out of her mouth. So yeah, she's getting much better at leave it. Now, if I can get her to leave it on, like, you know, other dogs when we're walking right by them, that would be even better. All right, so we're mixing up our colors here. I am going to go a little warmer on the skull and see if I don't like it. My initial colors are like the nod bone 4-to-1 with the brown liner turns into this grayish bone color, which is very similar to what we were using on the book. And I think I will go just a little bit up. Horizontal rain today. Woof. Yuck. I mean, I like rain, but not cold horizontal rain. The wind makes it bad. Yeah, milestone, right, David? In other news, for those following both subplots, as one of my viewers put it, the puppy subplot and the book publication subplot. I got the first of my covers. So like complete like the book cover, guys. Look, yeah. Yeah, there's a picture of me. There's a place for the barcode. There's a book description and an author bio and a pretty design. Pretty cool, huh? Pretty cool. That's for Kindle. I have to get on Ingram Spark and yeah, I have to get on Ingram Spark and get their template downloaded. And I'll tell you, that is a pain in the butt. Like, yeah, it looks good. I'm very happy with it. Even David's impressed with how pro it looks. It looks like a real book, guys. It looks like a real book. It looks like, it looks like somebody in New York publishing this book. Yeah. They are bear kings. There are 2 bears. Actually, there are 3 bears. There are 3 different bears. Generational. Grandfather, father, and son in this book. And the next. But yes, they are rather noble. The bears are very noble in this world. Like they're very much the Badger Kings of the world. If you want to draw a red wall parallel. All right, I'm going to grab actually some Cairnstone because this is a really warm color. I think I want to mute it out. And Cairnstone is a kind of a gray bone color, so I'm going to just do this. But yeah, so that's a landmark. I am now officially, like, if I wanted to publish my book on Amazon now, I could. Boom. Except I still need to finish my reader magnets, so I'm fighting my way through my short story. Short fiction is always hard for me. I'm very much a novel-length writer, so I was one of those people who was trying to submit to short fiction to magazines, and like they would have a 6,000 or 7,000 word, like limit, and I would be at like 8.5, 9, 10,000 words on my story and have to cut the heck out of it. I'm just a long writer. But that's the last thing, and I want to have that in place because I want people who want to sign up for my mailing list, I want to give them a little something. So since that'll be the primary way that I can communicate with readers, I have a Facebook group. Or a Facebook page, sorry, so I'll be doing a little bit on that. But Facebook to me is a danger because it's very much a time sink for me. Like it's how how Facebook sucks you in, how social media gets. So I don't want to spend a lot of time on Facebook because it distracts me from the important things. So I have a page and I'll do a little bit on it, but gonna do like a monthly newsletter just talking about like fairy tales and folk tales and any progress on the book and when things come out and stuff. Oh, nice. Sweet corn chowder. Yum yum. Another thing I always loved, depending on if you actually like the flavors, but during the winter, back when I could do a little bit more carby stuff, potato and leek soup is just so good. I used to do it with watercress. Our local store had watercress. So I would do a potato, leek, and crust soup, which is really easy. So easy to just, cook the potatoes and then immersion blend them up and in chicken broth or whatever or veggie broth if you want to. And and the leeks. The hardest part is just slicing the leeks real thin so that when they cook, they'll immersion blend nicely. But the flavor is just so good. It's like the vegetable soup that I truly can get behind. All right, let's get these horns done. We are cold here, but hopefully it warms up a little bit by the weekend, I think. But yeah, so the big struggle now with the book is Ingram Spark is the primary print on demand and print distributor for the USA. And they have global networks as well. Like they're really, if you want your paper book out there, Ingram's is who you go through. So I'm publishing on Amazon, but also on Ingram's, and in just the paperback and such version. And Ingram's is, because it is an old school publishing organization. Its website is a dinosaur. It is fiendishly clunky and takes forever. I see why people only publish on Amazon, because Amazon makes it very simple and easy. But so now I have to learn the Ingram. Like this is yet another thing. Like you know, all the things that I've learned, now I have to learn the publishing platforms. So it just, like, if you don't like learning new stuff, don't publish your own book. That's all I can say. Oh man. 82 degrees in Florida, right? Yeah, that's nice. There are times, you know, if it wasn't for the humidity and the hurricanes, I can see why Florida is attractive. So I'm just picking up little highlights. You can see the difference having put this on the one side as opposed to this side, which we haven't touched yet. So yeah, now it's learning to navigate Ingram Spark today. That's kind of what I'll be doing, and working on the reader magnet and finishing up some other stuff, and outlining my new Patreon thing. I think $2 tier is going to get a brush care and cleaning video this month. I put bits of it elsewhere, as far as, you know, we talk about brush care and cleaning every once in a while on here, but I want it searchable on the Patreon, so we'll be doing a little thing. Thank you for the wall of stuff, Quindy. There's my Patreon and my YouTubes and my, those are mostly the things that I do a lot on these days. Was thinking about whether I wanted to start a Discord for my writing. I like the Discord and Twitch and YouTube integration. And some authors do it. Or at least they do YouTube. But if I was going to have like an author community, like, I kind of like Discord. Yep, sorry. Sorry, Turgeon. I have repositioned my camera. I think I'm going to shove it back a little. I was messing with it yesterday because I needed to take some photos, and so I had to get it out of the way, and then repositioning it to the point where the model's always in focus is, you know, because I'm used to being right here. It's always kind of a struggle. So we'll shift the camera instead of shifting my hands, because we want to keep our hands always in a comfortable position. Also, I'm a little slow this morning. I ate a glutinous thing yesterday, and then my sleep wasn't very good. Man, as I get older, diet really has a huge impact. I could get away with stuff when I was a little younger, but the body is definitely telling me what it prefers at this point. So when you're doing little teeth like this, Try to make sure you've got very little paint on your brush. And if you do kind of glob some teeth together, like his front two teeth are a little globby now, I can come back in with a little bit of liner and fix that. At least these teeth are like sculpted pretty well, so. Hey, Corsair. Icebeard. Sounds like a mini boss in like an MMO or computer game. Yuck. Yep, lousy weather all over, it sounds like. I can't really complain. We're in the 50s during the day here. So since it's Groundhog Day, which is, by the way, my most disastrous day of the year, traditionally, I stay inside and don't do a whole lot of Groundhog Day because of past years. But I did notice that the U.S. groundhog saw his shadow and ran away, and the Canada groundhog stuck it out. So apparently Canada gets an early spring, but the U.S. is screwed. That's just what I read this morning. Obviously, we need to make a groundhog trade because I cannot remember any time in the last several years that the U.S. groundhog has not seen his shadow. Yeah, I missed him. I feel it. Well, groundhogs are probably just like, why are all these people caring about me one day a year? Groundhogs be like, I'm going to mess with you people. Sudafed can do both, I found. It can... Corsair. Some people it actually makes drowsy, and others it has the opposite effect. It never affected me either way. I'm not one of those people who typically get drowsy on meds. There's only one med I've met that really could just put me down for the count. And it's prescription only, and certainly not anything that I would care to take for anything on a regular basis. It's a pain med. There we go. So we got our little skull face is coming out nicely. Hi, little skull face.
Hello, I am a skull face.
There we go. So now she has her nice little skull, so we'll look, and it's not overwhelming. It's actually, her face is still the brightest thing, so that's good. The skull is there. I need a little bit more highlights on these little horn bits. Yeah, I don't know where Groundhog Day came from. Probably, I don't know. Anybody want to Google? Pardon me while I blow my nose, because it's definitely an allergy day. Whatever hog day it is, it's also allergy day. There we go. Yeah, it's definitely one of those days for Anne. Can't Google watching on phone. It's fine. Oh yeah, the kennel cough, yep. Yeah, kennel cough would be rough for me too, since I'm a light sleeper, so I feel it. I feel it, dog father. Kiki hasn't had it yet. I'm sure she'll get it somewhere. Pennsylvania Dutch superstition. Thanks, Beguiler. Well then. It's all Badger Day. So Old German. So blame the old Germans. Caddyshack? Really? Oh, that's not truly like only a Bill Murray movie, to be fair. Caddyshack. You don't like Ghostbusters? Wow, Agent Marvel. Because Ghostbusters. Yeah, there, okay, okay. Phew, Agent Marvel, you were scaring me. Because Ghostbusters. I'm a child of the 80s, but yeah. Yeah, there are a couple good Bill Murray movies. There are definitely some dicey Bill Murray movies, but Groundhog Day for me is actually a very loaded day. I do not like it. It is not a day I enjoy because 3 years in a row, back when I was still living in Wisconsin, on the first Groundhog Day was my grandmother's funeral. On the second Groundhog Day was a very painful, horribly abusive breakup. And on the third Groundhog Day, I lost my favorite job up to that point because I was downsized because they were cutting costs. And I was the youngest supervisor. So Groundhog Day, as far as I'm concerned, is crappy holiday where bad things happen, and this is why I did not do anything particularly auspicious or inauspicious on Groundhog Day. It is a day for sitting around and just kind of getting a few things done that don't matter terribly much. So, yeah. So Groundhog Day actually does count as my least favorite holiday, simply because of past association. It's pretty much the day the universe goes, oh, would you like a little bit of bad today? All right, we can rock that. And because it's a holiday, it's easy, like normally, right? If it was some random day, you wouldn't notice the pileup of bad things on it. But because it's Groundhog Day, so while you're going to the funeral, you're like, oh, it's Groundhog Day. And then when the breakup happens and the terrible bad stuff pours in, you're like, wow, it's Groundhog Day. And then you lose your job and you're like, it's freaking Groundhog Day. That's funny, Thoramel. It's a little bit easier now, though, right? If you do that, well, obviously 24 hours is still hard if you're missing sleep, but with phones and stuff, you can keep yourself entertained and not even watch the movie. They'd have to keep coming by to make sure you weren't phoning. Alright, so I've got the horns pretty nicely highlighted, and I'm pretty happy about that. A little bit more. Oh, is it that repetitive? See, I never went for the Stargate stuff. That was not my kind of thing. But yeah, you can't ever actually find anything that solves the mysteries of the universe. That would pretty much mean your show ended. So don't feel bad either. Obviously, you don't feel bad about not liking Bill Murray movies. I can like make everybody put a target on my head by saying I didn't like Firefly. That'll distract them from Bill Murray. And part of what I didn't like about Firefly was all my friends trying to cram it down my throat. So if you have a friend, people, you want them to like what you like, try not to force feed them it. Oh, Babylon 5 is king. Fist bump, Kerniko. Babylon 5 is king. Every once in a while I get very tempted to go back and rewatch all of B5. Or at least the first, or seasons 2 through 4 I could probably do, since, they kind of screwed it up. The network screwed it up after that. But, yeah, Babylon 5. All about it. I need a little bit more highlight on these horns back here. Yeah. And you can love Firefly. It's cool. I just didn't. I don't know if I would have liked it, even without my acquaintance friend trying to, get me to acknowledge that it was the best thing ever, which I wasn't going to do, being also a B5 fan. But I think I probably wouldn't have been a huge fan anyway, because I don't like Westerns. And it was very much, it was a space Western, right? So I didn't enjoy that part of the trope, which is funny because I like Cowboy Bebop, but Cowboy Bebop is like less Western, more space, I guess, in a lot of ways. Although it has a lot of Western parallels still. I don't know why I like Bebop and not Firefly. Yeah, I wondered how it had aged. Yeah, because I figured, obviously it was the first. Wasn't it the first TV show to actually do major CGI? I seem to recall that from back in the day. So yeah, the special effects are going to be. But the writing was so good. The dialogue was so good. Yeah, that's true. Main cast. Yeah, the main cast rocked it though. I mean, you're going to get down episodes in any TV series. The Bebop is just like, the music suits the show very well. Uh-oh, I have a hair. I'm going to save this brush for my brush care video and use it as an example of how to take a hair off. Yeah, the network's just clueless. Yeah, it's a bummer, Kroniko. A lot of famous sci-fi writers write for various shows. Like, they'll do an episode. Like Neil Gaiman writing for Doctor Who, and I think there are a couple other, like William Gibson has written episodes for stuff before. All right, so I wanted to get a higher highlight, guys, so that I could just do a little bit. So I mixed this with some white, just pure straight up. What this reminds me of, by the way, is the bone triad that was canceled. The middle bone, the graveyard, I think it was graveyard or skeleton bone. No, it was graveyard bone. But it was kind of a middle ground between the grade bone triad, that's like 90-59, 90-60, 90-61, and the creamy ivories, which of course, stained ivory was canceled. Yeah. Alrighty. I'm gonna hit. Yeah, like some stuff you can go back and rewatch and it's still good, right? Alrighty, and I'm just gonna put this little bits of highlight down the edges or the tops, just to give it a little bit more. Yeah, Neil loving Doctor Who. No surprise there. Just a little bit more, just kind of a centralized highlight just to bring out things a little bit more. Yeah, some shows are great because K9 is absolutely the greatest robot in science fiction. Yeah, Data's an android, not a robot. Yes, Marvin the Paranoid. See, everybody's got a favorite robot. And all those robots are great because they're all very different. Very different robots. Though if I actually had to pick my favorite lately, have any of you read the Murderbot Diaries? I think it's Murderbot for me lately. Those are very clever stories. It's pretty much about a security bot who's become kind of self-aware and who like spends their time like watching old TV shows, like streaming old TV shows, and learning like about humans. It's great because it's great because as a theme it really makes you question, humanity, what is it, right? But it's also just funny and awesome and it's just very good. It's very, very good. It's a very grumpy robot. I finished book 2, but I didn't get further yet because I just have so much to do. All right, little bits of highlighting, and now everything I think pops just that little bit more. I wondered if anybody was going to bring up the Danger Will Robinson robot. But you did it, Daffodware. Yeah, somebody else said that one too, Kerniko. But I can't even relate because I didn't watch Rogue One and I'm not watching the new Andor either because they're much darker than the original Star Wars movies. Like, even David, he's like, yeah, this is not your Star Wars. So I will never watch them. It's just not my thing. When I'm looking to watch something, I'm looking for a bit of escape usually. And I don't enjoy stuff that's too dark. Oh, did you say it? I missed it, Shadow Raven. BB-8 is cute. I have a debit card with BB-8 on it. Yeah, and that's you guys, right? Like, but it definitely has split their audience, in my opinion. Like, getting more serious, more dark, and that's something that's happening in modern fiction a lot as well. You have a group that really loves the dystopian, dark, serious stuff, and you have a group of readers that likes there to be more hope and more light in their fiction, and it goes for obviously the visual entertainment as well. Oh, is it Forbidden Planet? Yep. Yeah. Yes, B5 did have plenty of darkness, but I don't know, it's different. When it's gritty and realistic, I was okay with B5 because a lot of the darkness was aliens. It's like I can watch Aliens, but I don't want to go back and watch Alien. And like it's all like it's on a continuum, right? Nobody is just this way, just the other way. I always if it was comic book violence or otherwise, very fictional, I can do it. And when it gets too realistic or too gritty, I can't do it. Yeah, see, I don't want a non-happy ending either. Can't stand a Mandalorian. Okay. Oh, interesting. Littlest Hobo in Space. You're right. You're right. Oh, that's so funny. That's so funny, Korniko. You're so right, though. I mean, I'm sure there are other shows that from Hobo that have featured that kind of wandering hero. A lot of Westerns do it, right? But still, funny. Funny. Now I'm imagining the Mandalorian with a big London dog head on it. Because I'm very familiar. Those dogs are behind Shiloh's. So I know all about. I have tons of original publicity photos, and I have the trainer's books, Chuck Eisman's books. So Littlest Hobo, I know a lot of Littlest Hobo. That is like even more than having watched the shows. No, and Game of Thrones didn't kill off all the heroes either. And I could watch part of that, but I couldn't. There was a lot of violence in Game of Thrones that I couldn't watch because it was too much torture, too much humiliation, too much for me, too much. Except that that's not on a personal level, Pendrake. It doesn't show you people dying and getting incinerated. It doesn't get you involved emotionally with them first. They kind of exist as like a MacGuffin and as a plot device. They don't exist like, like they're not. You aren't following their stories, right? Yeah, but you know what? If they would have killed Arya, then I would have been done. But they didn't kill Arya, so I'm okay. That was the one character I really wanted to follow to the end. Actually, a lot of my favorite characters in that series made it. So, but I knew, like, after I read the first book, I knew that was the way Gurm wrote, and so I was ready for it. And I still, like I said, there was a lot of pretty nasty moments that I couldn't watch in the show, but like that was a show where honestly I had to stand and watch it because the minute something bad started to happen, I would just leave because I just didn't need that in my head. So I'm pretty sensitive on that stuff. I'm not desensitized to violence and like intense stuff like torture, that kind of thing. I can't watch it. Like I didn't watch a lot of TV as a kid, and it shows because I'm not desensitized to all that stuff. I'm very sensitive to it, and I don't enjoy it. Yeah, and me too, Corsair. That was the thing. I ended up watching Bebop more because I was watching it with a boyfriend at the time. And I enjoyed a lot of it, but yeah, the ending is, the ending is terribly depressing. Yes. I got David into it, though. He doesn't mind sad endings. Yeah, I can skim over it in a book, but I really don't want it shoved in my face. Yeah, which is a shame, right? Because, I mean, the parts of Game of Thrones that aren't that were very well done. I enjoyed them a lot. There's a lot of stuff that I really enjoyed that was good in that show. But yeah, it's just a lot. It's too much stuff hitting you in the face. All right, I think. We've got the bone done. I kind of want to do Birdie and Boots, and we need to keep those really understated and dark. So, oh, yeah, that's true. Did you see him die? I didn't see him die. Yeah, actually, they left it open-ended. Oh, I would be up for an Arya series too. Although they'd have to find a compelling. They just have to make it compelling. It can't just be the adventures of Arya Stark. Like, I have not watched House of the Dragon because of all the violence in GOT is why I didn't actually pick up House of the Dragon. I wanted to hear from people who knew my my odd tastes, whether I would be too much for me or not. Yeah, exactly, Corsair. So. All right, so I'm going to get my black indigo out. I also think I want to, if you want to kind of, to use a vibrant color like the indigo, like we've used on the boots and the bird, but you want to kind of not have it be very bright, then try using something on the other end like brown liner. So this is a blue purple, and this is kind of a yellow brown. So brown is an orange technically, and so that's complementary to the blue, and the yellow tone to this makes it complementary to the purple in this. So use a complementary, also dark color. I'm just going to put another, there we go in there. Yeah, Mac Attack, exactly. That's too dystopian. Like, that's too dystopian for me. But, you know, that's... Hollywood and New York, publishing and movies, very much are reaching for the dystopian vibe a lot. That's what they think is selling. And maybe it's true, but you know what? Yeah, not for me. Not for a fair amount of the population, I think. I think you can write a story with darkness in it and not have it be a terrifically dark story. Like, there is definite darkness. There are dark moments for sure in my books because you need that. You need that to have it emotionally feel good when the hero actually succeeds at something, right? But it's also, there's a lot of hope, you know. There's a lot of support. There's a lot of, you know, I feel like you need a balance. I feel like the best movies have a balance. But yeah, the whole anti-hero where the anti-hero is actually pretty villainous is not my kind of thing. The closest I got to that was the old Vlad Taltosh books by Stephen Brust. The Jereg books, for those of you who are familiar with him, came out in the 80s. Fun writer. I loved them as a kid. I can still enjoy them as an adult. Main character is an assassin, but it isn't, it's an interesting, he makes it work. He makes it work in my opinion. Yeah. Yeah, but that's, like I said, it's like whatever the entertainment industry seems to believe is going to sell. So I'm shading with my brown liner on the bird, and you can already see the blue kind of dropping off of the belly. Right, yeah. Yeah, right. And you know what? If your dark hero has a backstory that really does explain why they're that way, and if the storyline is a redemption arc, then I'm all for it. But something has to change. Like, that's the thing about, if you have a serial killer who's like the main character, that person's probably got some serious mental illness going on that led them to be that way, and so you're not going to see like a redemption arc with them, probably, you know? It's like, I think the closest I get to like enjoying one of those characters enough to actually, you know, vibe with them is Hannibal Lecter, because he, you know, obviously Anthony Hopkins played an amazingly charismatic sociopath. But even then, I didn't watch, I think there was a follow-up spin-off on Hannibal Lecter, and I didn't watch it. Yeah, you need a redemption arc. Even if it's a little tiny redemption arc, there has to be some change. Black is better if you use various colors to create it. MAC Attack. And better is like relative, right? So it depends on what you're trying to do. Black itself, coal black pigment, is a very flat pigment. It's very lifeless. And so that's why a lot of oil painters don't use it. A lot of canvas painters don't even use it because it just sits there on the canvas and it's a black hole, literally. But if you use browns and blues and other colors to mix your black, pretty much it's a near black, but it works. Then it has visual interest. Like it isn't as flat and as ashy and as bad. So a lot of painters mix their own darks because black it just has that problem. The other problem with black is that unless you use it extremely sparingly, it casts a very ashy feel into your colors. So if you're mixing a lot, like if you're wet paletting, black can be bad. So I would say that it's not that mixing it from blues is better, but a lot of people like using Payne's Gray, for example, for their black. That is just blue pigment and black pigment mixed together. But it's going to have a lot more life, and it's colder, and we're used to seeing shadows as colder. So I personally don't like using just blue. I find that it's too unnatural, and I will use a mixture of brown and blue. One of my old favorite blacks was to mix blue liner and brown liner. You mix it 1 to 2, blue to brown, because the blue is more a higher diffusion pigment, and it'll overwhelm the brown. So, you can create black with, that's what we're doing kind of. With here, I'm mixing the black indigo with the brown liner to create kind of a shadow for my black, quote unquote, crow and her black boots. But it's a mixture, yeah. If you just use blues, then you'll get cool shadows. They'll be neat. But it can be very saturated, and some people really love saturated shadows. Michael Proctor, I think Luca does a fair amount with it. So if you're not going for realism and you're going for cool and lots of color, then yeah, blues for shadows can be great. I like more naturalistic paint jobs. It's just the way I roll, and so I tend not to do that. And if I do it, like Luca was saying yesterday, I should do it to the gin for the NMM. If I do it, I will do it on a very lightweight level so that it's just very subtle, because that's what I enjoy. Lots of people love this sculpt, and see, I'm not as into it. You guys love it though, so I'm glad I'm doing it. Obviously, it's a very popular model. Out of all the ones you guys chose, this is the one that I was least into. But it's been fun doing the black, lots of a black red and a black indigo. Yeah, the paint job is coming along really nicely. I will agree there. It is definitely. I need to get the red back and do some more highlights on the front here, and I need to figure out some of my other parts here. It's going to be very difficult. What are you doing out there, Papa? She must be lying down outside of my visual range. Just hearing noises. Yeah, well, she is a very Terezinya has always been kind of gothy, even through all her previous sculpts. I think I mentioned that in Ron's original, kind of backstory for her, she was a thrall to a Dracolich. So she's always been kind of goth girl, in my opinion. Yeah, getting everything, all these straps and everything to stand out is going to be interesting. So, all right. I wanted to shade with my brown liner a little bit on the bird's tail. And then we'll start making a highlight for the bird. What, this character? It's not what she originally was, but I have no idea. Nice. All right, I do want to also bring up the book a little bit, I think. Just a little bit more highlight on the pages. But the book I want to be kind of dark, so. But yeah, I mean, they well may have reimagined the character since the early days of this character. Yeah, and I believe it was this one. Oh, I see. You didn't say... Yeah, you didn't say Calidrax, you said Kelly, and I was like, eh? I don't know the fan terms for the dragons a lot. But yes, that was the backstory, and yes, this was the character. But like I said, they could always rebrand it. Yeah, for Kiki, she was pretty polite earlier today. I haven't called her back in because I shut her out because she kept bringing me toys and I can't play her in stream, so she has to learn that I can't play her in stream. Yeah, a lot of people like white ink for that reason. Mac Attack. The thing, though, I'll tell you though, the thing with white paints is if you're getting a chalky effect, it's often over thinning. So what I usually tell people is with Reaper Pure White, which is probably the most thinnable of white paints as far as being on the market. With Reaper Pure White, never thin over 1 drop of white to 2.5 drops of water. So a 2 to 5, for example. If you were thinning more than that, then you're going to get chalk. And with anything other than pure white, you thin even less, probably a 1 to 2, and then assess it. But yeah, chalkiness is almost always over thinning. And a lot of people think you have to thin a lot more than you do. So just so you know, that can be a reason. It is probably, of all the people I have taught and talked to, that is the most common reason for chalkiness. All right. Yeah, okay, birdie time. Let's get the birdie highlights on. No idea, Kuro. So I'm going to take a brush full of my black indigo, pop it over here. I'm going to do a touch of the brown liner into it just to muddy it down a little bit so it's not quite so blue. Probably grab a little bit of my bone color, mix it in, get kind of a grayed out blue-gray. If I had used a lot of very vibrant colors on this model, then I could go a lot more blue and a lot more bright with my highlights on the birdie. Not for Master Series. I mean, it might be better in preventing chalkiness. You'd have to try it. I never do. I never use acrylic medium with MSP just because MSP's already got like flow improvers added to it. So like, okay, when you use an acrylic medium, what you're essentially adding is more base. So you want to use it when you're thinning. You don't use it necessarily in addition to water. I'd use it substituting partially for water. Like I tell people to make washes with our Reaper brush on sealer. That's essentially an acrylic medium brush on. All sealers are acrylic mediums when it comes down to it. It's the same darn thing. It's just, you know, how it's bottled, how it's labeled. So yes and no. I'm not, like I said, I haven't ever experimented with mediums for thinning. I don't like the finish I get. I don't like the way the paint behaves with it. It's more likely to cause streakiness, in my opinion, because you're adding more base and you're affecting the surface tension. I find that if I add medium, I get a little bit, the pigment clings a little bit more, and when I'm thinking I'm going to get translucent brush strokes, I'm actually getting streaks. But MSP really is formulated for water. Like, it absolutely is. I come from a background where when I came to Reaper, I'd spent years working with other companies' paints, and all of them needed to be doctored. It was the style back in the late 90s, early aughts, that you were adding drying retarder, medium, a flow improver to your paint all the time to make it better, make it behave better. And when I came to Reaper, that was the last thing I wanted. Like, I wanted to create a paint line that did not require you to add all this crap to it. And the biggest improvement that I saw in my own experiments was in adding flow improver to the paint. That usually would make the paint work so much better, even if I didn't add all the other stuff. And so that's what we did with Master Series. We pre-added those additives, and it does make the paint work very well with water. So yes, you can still add mediums, because, you know, if you're looking to do something like a wash, a medium is going to essentially make it a little more transparent without making it more watery. So it's going to keep the paint from breaking, because paint breaks when you add so much water that the water breaks apart the bonds between the resins and the pigments and everything falls out of solution. So when you add, and that's why I say you substitute a bit of medium instead of adding it in addition to your water when you're doing your ratios. Because then you're going to, essentially, instead of water, you're adding just a transparent, more base. So your pigment load gets lighter, but the paint isn't being added water to, so it's not going to break. You're adding actually more bonds. You're adding more of the stuff, the surfactants and chemicals that are holding your paint together. But since you're not adding pigment, you still get it more transparent by adding that medium. That's what mediums do. That, and they give you a finish, like if you want a gloss medium, you know, or you want a matte medium, things like that. But that is absolutely what mediums do. They keep your paint from breaking upon thinning, because you're adding more base. You're essentially, yeah, it's essentially as if you were using a paint that had less pigment added to it. Less pigment and less additives. Like, that's the chemistry of it. And it just, yeah. So it's a transparent thing that isn't water that you can use for that. That's why, by the way, the contrast paints from GW, they tell you never to thin them with water. They break apart when you do. Instead, you thin them with medium, which is just more base. So it's, yeah, you're just messing with the ratio of pigment to base when you do that. That's what you're doing. I mean, we did it because it got us better results, Agent Marble, right? We worked with Vallejo model color, which was really thick, and you had to thin it a ton, but it worked well once you got it to that point. So, yep, impromptu chemistry lesson, because, yeah. And the reason that inks work the way they do is that acrylic inks these days aren't real inks. They're not actually dyes. They are super fine pigment. So it's just like paints, it's just a super fine pigment, because they don't care about coverage, right? It's an ink. You don't want coverage, so you can go for the super fine pigment that doesn't have the coverage, and you can use that in solution. It doesn't fall out of solution as easily because it's super fine. It has a high diffusion rate. So that's what acrylic inks are. They're pretty much just, you know, paint with a slightly different base with a super fine pigment. Because the goal for that is different. The goal for those colors is different. Coverage is not the goal, because it's an ink. You don't want coverage out of an ink. If you wanted coverage, you go to a paint. Yep, Crowley, you got it. Enamels and oils do it very well because solvents have a different viscosity and surface tension. The surface tension on a solvent is really loose. Like, that's how you can just like touch it to something and watch it like stain the surface, right? So essentially it has a much lower surface tension, and water base has a much higher surface tension, and that's why you use flow improvers with it. Could you maybe get it to work with a lot of flow improver in an acrylic? You could maybe get it to work, but it'll never work the same way as a solvent. It's a totally different beast. Like I can thin with flow improver one of my liners, right? And I can paint in panel lines, but I need to actually mostly paint them in. But it's definitely a solvent versus, so it's the solvent base, that oil base or that chemical base versus a water base, and it's the surface tension that you're seeing. And there's only so far you can pull that surface tension with additives on water. And that's just that some materials are just going to be better at certain things, right? It's like when you watch like trying to find a appropriate thing. Like what flow improver does, if it's a surface tension breaker, you can actually watch it when you drop a drop of dish soap into an oily sink, right? A sink full of greasy water, or onto a pan, and you see that dish soap like hits and then it woof, and that's the surfactant, that's the flow improver surface tension breaker effect, right? That's working, but that's the most you can do. Like there's a threshold for that with water base, and it's definitely a different threshold than solvent. So yeah, it's why solvent based paints are still useful. It's why you can still do things with oils and solvent based paint that you can't do with acrylic. Yeah, I use the water-based oils. They're weird. I mean, and they're both solvent bases, right? I can't answer you on the enamel question, Mac Attack, because I don't use them. I haven't used them since I was a tiny little child and it was all the paint we had. I know people that do panel lines with oils. I mean, one of the things with oils is, I mean, honestly, if you have a cloth, because it's a long drying time with the oil, right? So you can put the oil over the whole surface, or you can just be messy and then take a cloth and just kind of wipe off, clean it up, right? Because it's still going to be wet. So if you wipe it off over an airplane wing, you're going to be able to take off most of that color and leave the panel lines. There's all sorts of tricks, but I'm not the one to ask about. So ask about them, because I use oils very little. I've only recently started experimenting again with oils for painting, and I'm using them entirely on fantasy figures, so I can't answer the panel line thing. But that's what I've heard. Justin McCoy from Secret Weapon used to be a company, no longer a company, but Justin, and the IPMS people are the ones to ask, because they do vehicle all the time, and they'll be able to answer, whether you want to do enamel or oil for those panel lines, and the pros and cons probably, right? But I would think oils would be a better medium just because you have time to work with them and clean them up, whereas enamels dry faster. Oh, there we go. Yeah, James might be one to ask. He also does a lot of vehicles, so James actually would be, Wapelius on YouTube would actually be a great resource. Or Twitch, sorry. Not YouTube. Maybe also YouTube. Yeah. Corsair, when I was doing a single batch for Reaper, it's always on the gallon level, because if you make 1 gallon, it's easy to double it. If you start lower at the quart level, whatever disparity in volume is going to get magnified, and so you seldom were getting a good match. When I first came to Reaper, they were doing the quart method because they were just doing never more than 1 gallon because the paint wasn't, a big seller for them. But by the time I left, we were regularly doing all 3 gallons, and sometimes a rare 4 gallon, depending. But 3 gallons is what fit in our tubs, so we were mostly doing the 3 gallon approach because we'd switched to bigger tubs. Every gallon is somewhere between 225 to 260 bottles, depending on how much you end up getting out of it. So often it's the case where you're adjusting. If you're adjusting the color, like if you get to that set and you're like, oh, this is a little bit dark, this is a little bit light, you're adding more material to try to get it to match, and that's when you get the higher number for a gallon, because it is actually slightly over a gallon. But in general, around 250 paints per gallon, 240 to 250 is pretty standard. So a 3 gallon batch, 750. So yeah, it varies though. It very much varies. And then, of course, if you have an accident or a spill, or the machine is clogging up a lot and you're having a lot of spills from that, you get a lot fewer bottles, right? Because that happens. That absolutely happens with paint. All right, where are we? We're almost to 11. Almost. All right, I am going to use some of this color and see if I like it on the birdie. I'm having to get closer. Boop, boop. There we go. Yeah, samples just weren't a perfect match, and often they've gotten, you just get to the point where you've loaded so much pigment into it, you no longer have a chance of hitting the color and you just restart. Yeah, thanks to my back, I am no longer a paint mixer. Even before I moved, I had started to transition back to a staff painter role because my back had gotten pretty bad, and I couldn't sling around those buckets like I used to, because a single 5-gallon bucket of white base is easily 60 pounds. A 60-pound lift is pretty hefty when you're having to move it across the room. Yeah, it can be a pretty color and you just have no idea what to do with it. That happens all the time. Then the challenge is to find something to do with it. I mean, the obvious answer is that a metallic orange would be a good high highlight on red dragon scales. If you went, if you started with non-metallic and you highlighted the scales up with a red metallic and went to an orange metallic, that would be pretty. I'm just enabling you, Kuro Nico. Hey, crows. Crows, I'm painting a crow. Just a little crow. So I'm reading a book right now, and I shouldn't have even started it because it's like feeding on my brain. Like when you wake up in the middle of the night and your brain is like, oh, this is why this character did this. I bet this is how the thing ends. And you're like, facepalm, go to sleep, brain. I'm in that mode right now, so I need to finish this book and get it out of my head. It's the third of the Scholomance books by Naomi Novik. I finally let myself start it, and I need to finish it. I need to end it. I need to figure out how it ends. All right, I'm actually going to darken down the beak here a lot with brown liner, and then come back in with a shinier highlight on it. Painting familiars can be very difficult because they're so small. You just need to try to figure out how you can pick out the pertinent information and make it show up. But whenever anything is shiny, like a beak, that means a very small focused highlight. So and I might give the crow colored eyes instead of just dark because they're not going to show up otherwise. I mean, metallics are just like regular colors, so anything that you would paint red and then highlight with orange, you can paint red metallic and highlight with orange metallic. They work a little bit like different because flake, obviously, but still you can get the same kind of effects. Like, never overthink it. It is that simple. So I'm starting to get really nervous about my novel releasing. Like, I'm starting to feel stressed about it. Which is, you never want that, but so many times when you're like excited about a thing, and then you start getting closer and closer to it, you actually end up being stressed about a thing. I don't know, maybe it's just me. Maybe it's probably because I've had to learn so many new things to do this. And so I'm nervous about it because I don't know how it's going to go because I've never done it before. It's almost certainly that. Oh, nice. Yeah, I've heard there's some good gloves for that sort of thing. Cornico, I'm glad that you have a solution. This bird has a tiny little nostril here. Can I highlight it? My paint is not thin enough. Remember when you have a teeny brush tip and you try to paint something and the paint doesn't come off the brush, it's because your paint is too thick. All right, let's get a little bit of a highlight on top of the head. Oh, I bet, Mac Attack. I'm just annoyed because I still have so much work to do. I should be nervous like right before I do it, not as I'm sitting here trying to get everything ready. Like I'm pre-worrying to practice for my worry. Mostly I'm just like schooling. I'm trying to get myself to the mindset where I'm just like, okay, done, time for the next book, That's the healthy mindset for me. Oh, the felines, yes. Try to put a highlight right on top of the beak there. So that's a little bit strong, so I'll have to back it off. What genre do you write, Mac? Get another little highlight here above the eye. Just a little bit of highlight right under the eye. That's a lot of highlights right on the face here, but I'm trying to find the sweet spot. And I'll probably do a glaze to take them down a little bit, but I want to be able to see. Oh, so you were doing, okay. High fantasy, yep. Gotcha. Yeah, I like high fantasy. I mean, it is one of the first things I read as a kid, as far as genres go. I always loved those heroic storylines. So I'm going to take a little glaze of the black indigo and I'm going to pop just a little bit over the highest point. So now what we've got, hopefully, is we can see the bird's face, right? We can see it, see maybe the expression a little bit. With something this small, it's so hard, especially when you want it to stay dark. Okay. Nice. Cool mat attack. Yeah, I'm a big Shadowrun fan. That was the first video, the first RPG I played when I went away to college, actually, because it had just come out. And the gaming group that I was in wasn't doing D&D at the time. They were doing Shadowrun instead, so I still have a big soft spot for Shadowrun. I think pen names sometimes are more common among female writers than male writers. At least they advise us, I'll tell you, to get one if your name is at all uncommon. Maybe I'm wrong about that, though. There we go. A little bit more highlights here. I have to decide how dark I'm going to keep things. Often when I'm trying to go black or near black guys, I will bring stuff up more at first, and then I'm going to glaze to knock it back down. I just find that is a more effective way for me to like visualize highlights. It's just like to paint it as if it's actually a lighter color, and then to glaze it to drive it back in the direction that I actually want it. Because it's very hard to keep your highlights, especially on such a tiny thing. It's very hard to keep your highlights at a minimalistic level. You almost always overshoot, and then your stuff doesn't look black anymore. So often I'll just give in to that. I'll just go with it and say, okay, I'm going to put highlights on here, and there's going to be a bit too much, but then I'll glaze and it'll be okay. Yeah, they pulled it off better than anybody. I don't know who else has tried to do it, but I agree, Mac. It's just a good world. But yeah, science fantasy isn't normally my thing either. Although there've been times. But all right, so a little bit there. So we've got highlights on Birdie. At this point, I can decide to go ahead and glaze on it. And I can decide whether I'm going to use that black indigo for the glaze or do you use a mixture of the brown liner and black indigo if I want it to go more black. But I do want it to be different from like her hair and her dress, so I probably do want to go more blue. So let's bring a little bit of our black indigo over. Boop. Pop a little bit of water in it. Glaze level. And then pop it over the top of all of the birdie feathers. And that will darken down everything. Do remember when you're glazing to dry off, clean off and dry off your brush, and then come back in and wick away any excess fluid so it doesn't dry in rings, say, onto the part of the model next to the one you painted. So now we still have highlights, but we've taken them down a notch. We can still see the face of the animal, we can still see the feathers. It's still there. So in general, successful, I think. Bye, Crowley. All right, and that is a good stopping point, guys. So we got the skull, and we got El Birdie with some highlights. So we will continue next time. I'm going to have to do something with all this jewelry soon. Block it in. Maybe I'll block it in really dark and do it really pinpoint silvery. Do it like dark silver or something. Just to keep it on the darker side, not too loud. That's kind of what I'm thinking. But yeah, so it's coming along, and we're going to get up on doing, like, the book will probably be one of the last things we do, just kind of tiny freehand, but she's coming along. She's coming along. Yeah. Hey, no problem. Thanks, Mac. Good luck with your writing, too. Indeedy. Yeah, and then what are we on tomorrow? Tomorrow, for our Friday edition, we have fishy. So fishy. If you remember, we did a lot of orange on fishy last time. So we actually did some stuff that wasn't actually copper for the first time. And we added a lot of green because we did the little frog leg down here. We added a lot of green tones to fishy's light parts, which I really like. So we're getting real close on fishy. We can do the leather probably tomorrow. I'm thinking the leather and working more on the orange. But I'm really fond of fishy. I cannot lie. I am fond of fishy. We still have to do the little copper lantern. Or cage. But that's it. So yeah. And oh, and we blacked in the base here with the same kind of black indigo blue color that we were working there. So yeah, he's really, I like this guy a lot. He's really coming along. He'll probably be, depending, I'll look at how Jeannie turns out too, but I think this might be my present to Jason, this Reaper Con. Because I just really love how he's turning out. I like to give away the models that I like the best. So, yeah, that's what I'm thinking. Yeah, he's just really good. All right, yeah, it's Crafty Creative today. Okay. Stretch. Remember to stretch, everybody, if you've been sitting around forever. Oh, much better. Okay, we'll see you tomorrow with the fish. And I hope you all have a lovely day. I am off to walk the Kiki and have some lunch. Thanks, everybody, and I'll see you tomorrow.